Here. Okay, welcome everybody. It's the last day of July where we are, and the first day of August where some of you are. And this is the Open Hearted Practice Group with Jory and Jim. And I'm feeling more energized now than I was 15 minutes ago at the beginning of the call. That often happens for me, that just getting present to our community here really enlivens me. And I didn't sleep so great last night. I guess something was going on. Anyway, I've been kind of slow today. Maybe it's also a hangover from our guests. Our son and his wife left yesterday, and I think there's some mourning in me about the missing and the celebration of our time together. And how are you?
Oh, I feel a little tired. We partied down for so long during the week. And it's kind of nice to just sit here and hang out a bit with you. So I'm delighted.
Yeah, really grateful for Suda's support. Thank you, Suda.
Yeah, Suda, we got some incredible feedback. People loved it. That was great. Thank you.
Appreciate your showing up for us and being our backup. Got some other cool backups from other folks as well, and I really appreciate that sense of community support. Really appreciate it. So thank you so much, Suda. So if you're here for the first time, maybe that might be true for some of you. This is a practice group, so we'll be guiding you in practicing nonviolent communication today. And we've been working on building a skill set to navigate challenging conversations. And Suda's offering last week was perfect in terms of the flow. It's exactly what I probably would have done last week had we been here. So it was really kind of cosmic that you chose to have that as the
You read our mind.
as the topic. And today we'll do some practice, kind of giving you a chance to integrate all that we've been working on since about the middle of May when we started this series. And to do that practice, we kind of focus on three different ways of practice. We do some self-connection work using nonviolent communication just as an inside job, just to be with ourselves. And then we also will practice chances to do honesty and empathy as well. So those are the three different ways we practice NVC here. And we'll probably be doing some written practices as well. So if you have the opportunity if you want to take notes and be able to capture the practice for yourself, it's a great chance to get your journal or a notebook or something like that. Okay, so let's start with self-connection exercise. Do you want to lead it today?
No,
Okay.
lazy giraffe.
All right, I'll just do what I need, which is let's just start with just a little bit of rest. So you've probably been busy with the morning if you're in India, and getting towards the end of the day if you're in North America. So just take 1 minute to rest. Just close your eyes. And if you'd like, everything we do is optional, so you don't have to do anything that I say. Just rest in the silence for a moment. And even with this intention to rest, I notice that my mind stays a little busy. And I'll bet that's true for most of you as well. So see if you can become present to the activity of your mind. You don't have to do anything about it. Simply observe your mind. You might notice thoughts. Could be thoughts of things that are coming up for you, kind of like planning thoughts. Maybe you're processing something that happened, thinking about something that you encountered today. Maybe you're having some memories come up. So you get a chance just to be the witness of thinking. And see if you can shift ever so slightly from simply witnessing your thoughts to having some curiosity and some empathy for your thoughts. In other words, just consider what need is that thought connected to? And as you do that, you might start noticing some sensations or emotions in your body. So staying in that kind of witness space, that observing space, attuned to your body. Notice sensations. Start with maybe some sensations like what you notice in your belly. Is it tight or is it loose? Is it numb? Is it full? Is it empty? Is it painful or pleasant? Check your heart area, center of your chest. Do the same thing. Just notice sensations without trying to shift or change anything, simply noticing the sensations that are there. Then consider pain. You notice anything that you would label as pain in your body. Just open to that experience with a sense, again, of empathy. Nobody wakes up in the morning hoping to feel pain, and yet it's part of our human experience, and something that can help us to navigate pain is self-empathy. Just notice the pain and be present with it. See if you can seek to understand the message of that pain. Imagine that the pain is trying to tell you something important. What are you hearing? You might be hearing judgments, thoughts, memories. You might be hearing needs. What's important to you right now? What's important to you that pain is alerting you to? You need to stretch something? Do you need to move? Do you have a need for rest? Water? Or is there another kind of need, alive, connection, learning, love? Another way you could ask is, what am I longing for in this moment? Just ask yourself, what am I longing for? Or maybe you're noticing pleasure in your body, something pleasant. You can do the same process. You can Say, what's the message behind this pleasure? What need of mine has been satisfied that's sending the signal of pleasure? And you can empathize with that in the same way. What longing has been fulfilled? What am I enjoying? Then just another minute of silence before we do the final step. So you can attend to yourself in whatever way you need to without my voice. So all of this preliminary work is about getting present. What's actually happening right now in your direct experience. It's like the foundation that we stand on in our NVC practice, this presence. And then it allows us then to develop a vision. From now on, what would make your life wonderful? So we'll be together for a couple of hours now. We'll just chunk it down to the next couple of hours. From now on, over these next 110 minutes, what would make your life more wonderful? So these are some of the things you can talk about in a small group now. You talk about any aspect of your direct experience that you noticed during the self-connection exercise. And you can also talk about what you learned, especially about what would make your life most wonderful for the next period of time together. So we'll go to these small groups for about 10 minutes. So pretty brief first group, 10 minutes plus one at the end. So everyone has just about 3 minutes for a brief check-in, just to say your reaction to the exercise and maybe one thing that you're hoping for with the meeting. Then if you have time to do a second round, of course, you can do that. So it might sound like something like this. My name's Jim. I'm in Maui. And I think what I enjoyed about that exercise was just taking just a little time for me. Mm. And then what would make my life wonderful for the next couple of hours is lots of interactivity. Love to hear lots of voices today. And then it would be somebody else's turn. I'm not going to ask Jory because she was busy making groups. I know what she was doing. So we'll see you all back here in 10 minutes.
All right. And you don't have to do anything. You'll just come back automatically. And the audio on. It's a real turn on, Jim.
Turned everything on.
You did.
Everybody be right back. And here we are.
Zoom.
Okay.
Oh, welcome back.
So this is the place now that people are reassembling here in Zoom space. This is the place where we love to hear your voice. And so if there's something in particular that you'd like to share about, either of what's happened in the group so far or some other insight from your NVC practice since last time we saw each other, we welcome that to happen now. If you would like to talk, then please raise your hand like
There you
Isabel
go.
just did.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to raise your hand, there's a little button on the bottom of your screen now if you have the latest Zoom software that actually says raise hand. If it's not there, then you can push under the reactions button and there's a place there to raise your hand. Isabel?
Thanks, Jim. I really enjoyed the self-connection today as you brought up from the awareness into our thoughts and then to our body. And I love the part where you asked us to empathize, if we will. And I love the part about the choice. You know, you don't have to follow me, you can do it. These are all signature, your signature self-connection. But in particular today, I just felt so energized, and that freedom to choose helped really, and to empathize with whatever pain or pleasure in our body and get in touch with the needs. Beautiful, beautiful. Something that I can, going forward, also use. And I felt so blessed to be in company of Purva and Elspeth in the group. And I don't think I need to explain, but having meeting in this space with people who are longing to walk together and do their part for the peace and nonviolence is just pure joy. And I feel blessed today. Thank you.
Thanks, Isabel. Thanks for the feedback. I'm glad you
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it.
Yeah.
And
Dan.
Dan.
There you go.
Hey everyone. So thank you. I really appreciate the suggestion to empathize with our thoughts. I've made this connection that all of our actions are attempts to meet needs, but I only thought of the actions that I choose. But thinking is kind of like an action that I don't choose. It just happens. And yet it's also to meet needs. There's also needs underneath my thoughts. So I think that if I reflect on my thoughts from now on, imagining what needs are behind them, I can get to know myself a lot better and take care of myself a lot better too. So I'm really grateful for you sharing this with us.
Wonderful. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate the feedback. Anybody else? If you've been waiting to be the last person, this is a good time to go. If not, you're stuck with me talking some more and practicing, which is great. What a wonderful option. Oh, go ahead, Rena.
Yes. Don, thank you. That brought me to further awareness that when I reflect on my thoughts, or when I catch my thoughts from an observer space, then, it takes away the sting from the thoughts. So, that's a beautiful inner space to be more present to myself. Oh, this is, and then I remember this. I'm telling myself, I'm telling myself before a thought, that I'm telling myself that they don't care,
Right.
or that I'm stupid, or I should have known better. So I'm telling myself helps me to kind of have that level of distance, so that I can truly be with the thought without losing my breath. Yeah, and then go into how am I feeling and what is the need.
Right.
So from the head to the heart, with a full oxygen tank.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Rena.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Rob.
Yeah, I feel discombobulated, but I realize a need for autonomy. I feel there's a lot of what could be said as drama in my house, my kids, my son in his 2 relationships right now. My daughter's a programmer and her eyes are really hurting her. And it's like, there's not a lot I can do for them. And all I can do is live my own life and not try to be as happy as the child is doing the worst, or however that saying goes, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, need for autonomy and yeah, my own life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I'm really grateful that you said that. I can't think of anything more exquisitely painful than watching the people that I love suffer.
Oh, you're right. I should stop loving them. Then it won't be so bad. Thank
It
you.
has its own pain, yes.
Oh boy, you just never know how your words are going to be taken. Thanks, Rob.
Right.
Right. Anybody else? Appreciate these sharings. Okay, then let's practice. So we'll start with a bit of a written practice to get us set up for what I imagine will become a role play. But we'll see what actually happens.
Life is always full of surprises.
So
what
kind of the
happens.
theme that we've been working on since the beginning of May was, what do I do if? This is the question that NVC trainers are always asked in our trainings. We do a little thing about the basics, and then somebody else says, well, what do I do if? And then we work with the real life situations where we're challenged to live and use nonviolent communication. So let's start with think of something you'd like to talk about with someone you care about. So first, it's just thinking. So there's nothing wrong with thinking. We got to think. Thinking can be so life-serving.
Yeah, important part of being human.
Lots of different ways to think. Marshall once told me that nonviolent communication is just another way to think. Another way of thinking. So think of something you'd like to talk about with someone you care about, and then write down, just for your own notes, and you want to share it with anybody, who is it and what is the topic? Aim to be specific and concrete is the coaching suggestion. And what I mean by that is don't say, I want to talk to everybody at work about what's going on at the water cooler. I don't know, I just made that up. But I'll bet it's not everybody that you'd like to talk to. Maybe it is, but it would still be great to just identify who specifically to talk about what specifically. And that will just help you to get clearer on your needs. If anybody has any questions, you can just chime in with a question at any point. You can do this in terms of a real life scenario, or you can do it as an imaginary scenario just for practice. Like, for example, I'm thinking about a conversation that I know I'll never have with a neighbor, because I just don't think that it's hard for me to imagine at my current skill level that I could actually have that conversation, but I'd still like to practice it, because maybe I'll discover something that will empower me to actually believe that I have some power to have this conversation. So this would be for me, it would be the topic would be a particular neighbor whose name I don't even know. And the topic is that he lets his dogs run loose in the neighborhood, and it causes some havoc for people, including me. I'd like to talk to him about that. Then the third question is, what motivates you to have this conversation? I kind of built mine in. Dogs are running loose. I noticed dogs running loose in the neighborhood that aren't behind a fence or aren't leashed. And I actually see it happen every day. And
You also hear them.
I hear them bark and so forth.
Mhm.
So what's the observation for you? And see if you can be, again, concrete and specific and describe what you see, what you hear, what you smell, taste, or touch. So keep it sensory based. So we have these sensory apparati. Is that a word? These sensory organs. We have eyes, ears, tongues, noses, skin, fingertips, and that's how our brain knows the world. So we learn about this world that we share with one another through our senses. So the purpose of this part of nonviolent communication is it creates the ground of connection. Now, I'm not necessarily implying that I will see the same thing as Jory sees or hear the same thing. That our worst fights that we've ever had were because I said something like, you said blah, 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 quack, quack. And she said, I did not say that. So then I realized that what I needed to do in order to navigate that conversation was, I heard you say blah, 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 quack, quack.
That's just a filler. By the way, he never has said that to me.
I try to do, in other words, observations are self-responsible. That in order to make, for me, in order to make an observation, I have to take responsibility that it's what I see, what I hear, what I smell, what I taste, and what I touch. And that gives you space to have your own experience as well. So we don't necessarily have to agree that we saw the same thing, but if we connect about it, we might find common ground in that observation. And now we shift to the next part of, we shift from the world that we're connecting to with our sense organs. Now we're going to shift to what we can connect with our heart. So when you think about the situation right now, how do you feel?
Yeah, just what emotion, what sensation?
So first, you notice, bring this event, motivating event to mind. And you notice what's happening in your body. And then you name it for yourself by writing it down. So these sensations and emotions, these are signals that are provided by our bodies and for our brains in order to get connected to what's important to us, what we call a need in nonviolent communication. So what needs are important to you in this particular situation? So I'll do my feelings and needs about the observation. So when I see these dogs running around in the neighborhood, I feel concern and the need is around safety, not only for me, but for the dogs. You know, I would hate for a dog to suffer from getting hit by a car or getting in a tangle with a pig or all these things that can happen where we live. So it's really my feeling is concern, and what's important to me is protecting life, protecting both my life, Jory's life when she's taking a walk, other people that might be walking in the neighborhood, as well as protecting the well-being of the dogs. So what's it about for you? What needs are important to you? And once you come up with some needs, you can put them into the chat. I'm going to put a needs list up on the screen. That can be helpful sometimes for people. I'm going to make it bigger.
These aren't the only words, but they are pointers to something universal.
Noticing some needs showing up in the chat. So that might be inspiring for some of you if you're wondering what it might be about for you.
And just for those of you who might not be able to see the chat, there's security, support, being seen, heard.
Peace of mind, safety,
Security,
authenticity,
connection,
well-being. Peace of mind. When you find, so again, first you're noticing the need. You usually, I notice a need because I follow a pathway from my feelings. So I follow this sensation or this emotion, find out where it takes me, and it takes me kind of deeper into my heart. And I find some word that tries to do the impossible. It tries to capture this living energy that Marshall called needs. And once I notice it and then name it, then the idea is to allow yourself to really be in that energy, to taste the energy of the need, to savor it, was the word that Marshall often used. To savor the need, to stew in it, let yourself cook in the energy of the need. So this would be a silent process. This is the deepest place of self-empathy, is to allow yourself to just be in the living energy of the need. So just take a moment and allow yourself to really open to an awareness of the experience of your need or needs. That's what I want. Okay, and so now the next step of practice is the request. What would you like to ask of the other person?
Yeah, something really concrete and specific.
We've been talking about different kinds of requests. You know, in my case, it's an action request.
Mhm.
It's like, would you be willing to please keep your dogs on a leash or in their dog pen? That's concrete and specific and
Mhm.
something that he could do right now.
Aren't there laws about this?
Oh, yes. Yes, there are, but we live in the middle of nowhere. I have actually done my best to call they call it humane enforcement here, and doesn't seem to have had any effect so far. You learn to be very patient in Maui. What would you like to ask of the other person? It could be an action request, like I was just talking about. Maybe you would like some understanding about your needs. Maybe you would like to make a confirmation request. You'd like to ask the other person, like to share your needs with the other person and ask them to reflect them back to you. Or maybe you would like to share what's going on for you and make a feedback request. How do you feel when you hear me say this? Could be an example of a feedback request. So now use your imagination and imagine that you actually ask the other person what you would like. And what do you predict their response would be? If you were to ask the other person, what's your prediction about their response? What do you sense they will feel and need if you ask? Of course, you don't really know. You're just making a prediction. This can be very helpful in terms of awakening empathy. In my case, my prediction is what would happen would be what would happen last time I brought it up. I didn't do a very good NVC job with it, I got to admit. And he basically argued with me and said that when he was with the dogs, he didn't need to have them on the leash. So I would interpret that as he got defensive and wasn't particularly interested in connecting. Which is why I think I feel hopeless about having a sense of connection with him. So my sense is that he feels angry, and his need is something about freedom and autonomy.
Mhm. You see,
Again, let's put that other needs list up so you can use the list to help you to connect to the other person's needs. Again, you can make your empathic guesses in the chat. Any empathic guesses for how the other person might respond to your request? What's your sense of their need for understanding, respect, space? You imagine they might feel confused. I think that's a really powerful guess that Janelle made about confusion. And I think it's pretty general that often people feel confused when someone uses a communication skill that maybe they're not familiar with. They might be confused. Why are you talking like that? I don't know if that's what Janelle was talking about, but I certainly noticed that when I was a new practitioner of NVC, I often seem to stimulate confusion in people. Grateful, receiving care. Lovely. Be quiet for about 30 more seconds while you empathically connect to the other person. Empathy doesn't require that any sense that the other person even knows that you're empathizing with them. Empathy never has anything to do with the words that we use. It's rather where we place our consciousness on the experience of the other person. And so you don't need any words to express empathy. Empathy is something that happens inside of you.
It's not something you're giving other people. It's something you're actually giving yourself.
And it's your birthright, you know. Empathy is our birthright as human beings. Everyone is born, as far as I know, with the capacity for empathy. It's kind of hardwired into us as a species. It's how we have gotten to where we are. So, next question in the practice, and I think this is the last one. Yeah, this is the last part of the practice.
You lost it again, Jim.
I know it's not there yet. Is inviting. Now, once you have some sense of clarity about your who you want to talk to, about what, and so forth, you've answered all these. What we've been doing so far is self-connection, right? Self-connection with a little bit of empathy. And now we're going to go to honesty, and we're going to invite this conversation. What could you say? How could you open the conversation in a way that you sense would support connection? And use your own words that reflect the culture that you live in. So if this is something that's happening at work, talk work speak. If you live in a family and there's a certain way you guys talk, use that kind of language. You can use so-called NVC language here in a practice group, just for practice, but out there in the real world, if you want a sense of connection, I recommend that you speak
In your own language.
in the way that people
Yeah.
speak about other things.
Yeah. Speak normal.
do-
Normal for you.
and-
When you're
And do it in a
environment.
self-responsible way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to do any blaming, or just be careful with your pronouns. And that really helps in the inviting.
Yeah.
So be quiet for a minute while you do some thinking and writing about how could you open this conversation. And So I'm going to stop the screen share and invite people to invite this conversation out loud. So you can either use Jory or me as the person. So if you think you're going to be talking to someone that looks more like Jory, then you could ask her to be the receiver of your invitation. If you think it might be somebody that looks a little bit more like me, then you could ask me to do it. And if you want us to be somebody that doesn't look like either one of us, we can pretend to be that person as well. So I'd love to hear at least 3 people try. You won't be judged. You might be coached if you want it, but only if you want it. So what would the invitation, and we'll give you our authentic response to your invitation. What would it sound like? Let's hear your invitation. You don't need the rest of the story. Yeah, go ahead, Kinneret.
I might say, I'd love to have a conversation about our connection. Would you be willing to do that?
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, just when you say that, I just feel it in my body, that sense of welcoming, that, you know, the softness of your voice, the clear sense of openness in how you said it. Yeah.
It's easy for me to connect to the need, you know, it's like, it doesn't sound like I did anything wrong here. It's like, this is something that's important to you. And I imagine that it's important to me too, that if you're bringing this conversation to me, that it's something that we share, this need for connection. So thank you, Kinneret.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Somebody else? Yeah, Sterling.
I see that you see that your dog is safe when you're walking without a leash, when you're walking with your dog.
That's right.
That's what you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an observation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then what, once you say that, what do you imagine would happen next? I say, yep, that's right. What do you imagine the next thing out of your mouth might be? You don't have to answer now. You can just kind of think about it.
I don't sometimes I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a dog on their leash. I've had some experiences where I haven't been safe and they've tried to nip me.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's really clear and concise, and you're owning it in your own experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Somebody else? Yeah, Rob.
I'd like some more connection with you and get to know your dog better. Let's go to the dog park tomorrow together.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds kind of like fun. You know, let's go to the
Yeah,
dog park
have some
together. You know,
fun.
it's like a party that I would consider going to. That's what I love about this inviting piece. This inviting is a special kind of request. And you wouldn't invite somebody to a party unless you were really being warm and inviting and letting them know what the occasion was. And Rob did that in a warm and inviting way. So it actually,
And we have them here. We call it Yappy Hour.
Yappy Hour. Yeah, let's go enjoy.
Yeah, at the
Yappy
dog
Hour.
park.
Nice. Yeah. Maybe one more. Okay. Nobody else wants to play. So now you all get to go back to your small groups.
I just want to mention something. For me, the times when I need my NVC skills the most is when I'm usually the most emotional or triggered. And I know this topic has been discussed in NVC since its inception, but when the trigger is very active, for me, it's hard to be so friendly and nice and pleasant because you go into fight flight mode, you know?
Yes, yes.
And that's often when these conversations are most required and necessary
Yeah,
while you're in a fight flight mode. And so it's easy to be so rational and nice and friendly when you're calm and you can be neutral.
yeah. Yeah, so you're noticing that when we're emotionally charged, we're least likely to have access to the skills that we might have otherwise.
Yes, and it's my experience that NVC happens in a different part of the brain. Has anyone addressed this? That's what my observation has been. It's
I
like
don't
the
know
most
exactly what you mean
civilized.
by a different part of the brain,
Yeah.
but I would say that I'm in harmony with you that the access to skills decreases the more charged we are. That's why I started with 7 steps before we opened our mouth. So it slows things down. So you get really clear on I get really, to the best of my ability, I get really clear on my observations, feelings, needs, and requests, try to empathize with what it's going to be like to be the other person hearing my request. And then I make the invitation. So I'm doing my best to not have a conversation when I'm charged. I want to go and regulate my nervous system.
And if we look back at our past, when we haven't done it that way, we've paid a price of disconnection.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and there is one skill that can help that is NVC, but it might look like we're charged, and we call it screaming in giraffe. And what it basically means is that we speak from our self-connection, our honesty, and our empathy, but we might do it in a way that's quite protective. So we might say, you know what? I'm feeling really, really triggered right now. There's something that I think we need to talk about, but I'm sensing that this is not the time to do it. Can we return to this in a half an hour?
And you'll notice he used the word I a few times, but he never used the word you. It was just him saying how he was or is in that moment.
And that can help. So that's a way that I can authentically be with my strong feelings without blame, and to advocate for the world that I want to live in, which is that we have these conversations when our nervous systems are in a relatively calm state. Is that always possible? I don't think so, but it's certainly the aim that I have,
Yeah.
is to have these conversations when at a time when I'm well rested, well fed, and so forth, because they're going to go better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unless there's some danger for someone in that very moment, you can wait until you're in a better resource state. It'll just be more effective.
Yeah.
And nice.
Has anyone ever addressed my observation that NVC happens from a different part of the brain than when you're triggered and yelling and fighting?
Oh,
And
gosh, yeah.
Of course, yes.
Oh,
Yeah, if you're
Mhm.
really interested in exploring that in depth, I recommend the work of our colleague Sarah Payton, Peyton. She's got a couple of books out now, and she really focuses on the neuroscience of NVC and connection and so forth.
oh, okay.
She has a lot.
Because I've literally noticed that I have to go to another part of my brain to do NVC. I literally have observed
Yes.
going to another part of my brain, whereas the old triggering model stuff happens like from the reptilian part of the brain, the fight flight part of the brain. In me, I've observed. Mhm.
I know what you mean. Yep, I think
Mhm.
that you have a very
And-
common experience there.
And it takes practice and composure and discipline and skills to do this.
Yeah, it does. Practice, practice, practice. Absolutely. Isabel?
Thanks, Jim. This is a very triggering exercise because as you asked for us to think of somebody that we care for, there is intimacy, and that's a strict, very triggering. So this is a feedback request to somebody from whom I need support on something that I'm going to do. And I know for sure is not gonna like that. And the moment I invite, like, honey, I'd love to talk about something that matters deeply to me. Would you care to? That far, good. But the moment the topic comes out, it'll be like, you know what I'm gonna say. Are you trying to manipulate me
Hmm.
into even supporting you when I'm really not?
Okay.
So how much?
Yeah. So how
Yeah.
about you play the person that says, I know you're going to manipulate me, and I play you. Okay. So honey,
Oh,
there's something really on my mind I really wanted to talk to you about, and I wanted to check to see if this is a good time for us to talk. Would that work for you?
what's this about?
Well, it's about I'm needing some support. I'd like to ask you to be my partner, and so it's really. But I only want you to partner if it works for you. But I want to just check to see if a partnership might be possible, if I can get some support from you.
Or you're gonna do it anyhow.
So yeah, so it's kind of you're astonished that I would even bring it up, because you're pretty sure that I'm gonna do it whether you agree or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you feel about that?
Why would you ask? You're gonna do it anyhow.
Yeah, well, I'm really curious because I think I know what you're talking about. You're noticing that there's been a pattern in our relationship that that sometimes I will do what I want to do whether you want me to or not. And I imagine that's been painful for you. Is that right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's kind of befuddling that we would even be having a conversation like this. It's really different for you.
Yeah.
It feels like we're writing a different script now, and this really feels weird, huh?
Yeah, cut it out.
Yeah, you kind of like to go back. Maybe you would just prefer that I do whatever I want and not bring it up.
Yeah, it's your life.
Yeah. So you want me to know that I actually have your support and permission to do what I really want to do.
Really cut it out.
Yeah. Something about this isn't working
Just
for you. Yeah.
no.
Yeah. So maybe you'd like to put a pause on the conversation for now.
Yeah.
So we pause it here, and then I just check in with you as that person. How do you feel? Now the role play is over, but you can kind of remember how it is to feel into that. What do you notice?
Surprise, frustration, using my typical patterned language to just cut it out. But I think there is an opening. There is definitely an opening, as you, Jim, played my part, lingering on and staying on with that energy. I think perhaps something can open. Hope.
So you have a little bit of hope. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be miles before I can get there, though.
I understand.
There's just so much triggered in me.
Yeah, these first 8 steps, or however many there were, in the exercise, the first 7 steps, they do take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And they might take weeks or months. But it's time well spent, because it gets me out of demand energy. So I know for a fact that if I were to go to talk to my neighbor with the energy that I have now, I know it's not going to go well, because I want him to be different. I have this much curiosity, 0, about why he does it the way he does it. I don't care. It's like Regina says, there's laws about this, and I can kind of feel my righteous indignation. So I know I'm not ready to connect. I need to really stay with self-empathy for a while before I could ever have that conversation. That makes sense?
I think NVC, yes, absolutely. And NVC has helped me so much into getting to see his needs, where he comes from. And for most of the time, I just, and you can guess, it's my husband, whom I love very much, and he's a dear person to me. And it's just that in some areas, we just have to walk the parallel line. And being the intelligent person he is, he doesn't want to be manipulated. And I'm not about to give up something that matters to me. So it's like a parallel line, but MVC has helped me see where he's coming from, for sure. And I have full empathy. So what ends up happening is my silence. I just live with it in a peaceful way, and we are fine. Our relationship's fine until Jim and Jory asked me to put up an invitation. That's when I go like, know what invitation I can put up, because he's going to think this is a manipulation.
Yeah, so here's your invitation. I invite you to make the choice that works for you the best.
Yeah. And
Which is
he's,
parallel
yeah.
and
You know what? He's right to be concerned about NVC being manipulative. That's a fair consideration, because without what we call the 0 step, which is getting clear on our intention that connection is what we want, without that, we can use NVC skills very manipulatively. Take it from an expert. You know, I know how to push people's buttons. You know, I know I've got all these psychological skills, blah, blah, blah. That's not NVC though. You know, for me, NVC, go ahead.
by manipulation, what I'm trying to say is you're going to do it anyhow. It's why would you bother to ask my support when I'm not going to change my mind?
Yeah, fair question.
That's the
fair question, and it
Which is,
probably might lead you to a very deep and new level of understanding about why you would want to open the conversation.
yes.
This is something that I've been confronting lately a lot, is the whole idea of honesty, which has always been an edge for me in nonviolent communication. And so I'm really wondering about why I would ever be honest. It really has to be motivated by a need. You know, what's the need? I don't want to do it because I should.
Mhm.
I want to be a human being and not a chair, right? And so I want to make sure that my using nonviolent communication is in the service of making life wonderful. If seeing her humanity, seeing my neighbor's humanity, and not seeing him as I'll just pick on my neighbor, not seeing him as a scofflaw who only cares about, I mean, I've got a whole litany of judgments that I haven't taken care of yet. So I know it would not serve life for me to open up the conversation yet with him, but practicing with it, that serves life, because already I get to see some of the inner work that I need to do, thanks to everybody here. Yeah,
My greatest teacher, my husband.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
For sure how much I love him
Yes,
and
I
how
agree.
important he is in my life. I don't think I'm going to invite him yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Joy, you had your hand up. Is it still alive?
I think I'll pass. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, let's go practice. Let's go back to small groups, and you can try out your invitations with everybody. And the idea would be that you would practice and get feedback, and then maybe change your invitation, yeah, based on the feedback. So let's say that I tried it, and my first one goes something like this, you know, hey man, you know, you're really inconsiderate neighbor. You only seem to care about your needs. Want to talk about it?
Yeah, this is it. This is what I hate about you. You're always like that.
Yeah. So already I'm getting the feedback that maybe developing a little bit of warmth and curiosity might support me in this conversation. So
I guess I didn't model that either.
no, but it was a very authentic and likely. So anyway, we're gonna do these small groups for 20 minutes. So that should give you plenty of time to connect and practice and see what you can learn. And then when we come back, we will see what happens next. So I'm gonna open up the groups. If you've changed your mind and you no longer want to have an equal sign in front of your name, just come back to the main room and I'll find a group for you. And here we go.
Ready with me? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
Hey, all right. I think everybody's back now. And love to hear some reflections, especially about what did you notice that supported connection in your small group? What did you notice that supported connection in your small group? That'd be one of the things that I'd love to hear about.
Mhm.
Another way of looking at it be what are you taking away from the practice? So either of those two questions.
Don't all shout at once.
Nobody raises their hand, I'll start picking on the certification candidates to get the ball rolling. Okay, great.
Okay.
There's Janelle.
Hi, Janelle. Thanks for coming.
All right. So first question was, sorry, can you repeat for me? It was,
Yeah,
what did
the
I find?
questions were, what did you notice that supported connection in your small group?
Yep.
Yep.
So I noticed right off that there was a request if I wanted to receive feedback on my invitation. And that just felt so, it was a complete choice to receive it. I noticed that the feedback that was shared was honest and heartfelt, and that felt really supportive. And when there was a second attempt and then tried the invitation again, there was a real honesty in how that felt, that was really quite precious. So yeah, that's my reflection on what was done that was supportive.
Oh, thank you. That's really sweet to hear.
Yeah.
And what about your own takeaway? Anything that you imagine taking away from the practice, either that practice or whatever else we've done this week that you imagine will support you from now on?
So one of the things that I have been struggling with probably the whole time I've done NVC is giving empathy. And it's funny because I think part of my brain thinks that I should be really good at that because I can listen well, but giving empathy is something quite different. So I felt like in that experience that I was able to really connect. Our session went a little bit differently. So I was really able to connect and give empathy. And it felt like it was well received, that it really allowed people to get deeper into what was true for them. So thank you
Wonderful.
to both my partners.
What a
That was
wonderful
beautiful.
celebration. Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Lisa?
Yes. So what supported connection for me was like flexibility and openness and yeah, and honesty and the willingness to risk. Yeah. I guess, yeah, that sense of willingness to risk and to connect.
Sweet. And what would be your takeaway from your own practice that you imagine will serve you from now on?
Gratitude.
Mm.
Yeah. Gratitude. That's what I would take away.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate you sharing.
And I see Purvis said being vulnerable, using I statements.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And-
someone else has a hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah Joy.
I think in our group, in the first time we met, we each had a time. We had a time limit that was set, and that everybody got enough time. So I thought that was supportive. Also, there was listening and empathy and honesty happening. And then the second time, we forgot to time it, and only 2 people got to go. I'd be willing to go back in the group and be there with the third person so they had time, but I think that was hard. feeling
Yeah.
on all of us. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm sharing.
I appreciate that feedback. I think there's a way that we could set up Zoom. I'd have to do a little research, but I think we can make it so that
You
you
could,
don't have
yeah.
to come back.
Right,
And
there's a way.
so maybe we can do that next time. I'd have to, like I said, I'll have to do a little
Yeah,
bit of research,
later.
but there's something power over about the way Zoom is that I don't really like. And I got some feedback also from somebody else here that it didn't feel like there was enough time. And so we make the best guess we can about how long certain thing will last. But boy, I'd love to give people the freedom to just stay if that's
Yes.
where their needs are getting met. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna
that's a good idea.
I'm gonna figure out how to do that for next week. I appreciate the feedback, Sarah Joy. How do you feel hearing that?
Grateful. And I don't know if the person's still here who was in my group, to hear this, but I'm grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, and at the end of the session, you'll be able to go back into that group if both of you communicate and say that's what you want.
Sure. Yeah. Great. All right. Still got time for some more feedback. I'm curious, Dan, loved hearing your voice earlier in the call to see if there's anything up for you now after this practice that you'd like to share with us. And I'm picking on Dan because he is a certification candidate, and every time he opens his mouth, I learn something new. So I'm always trying to see what I can learn from Dan. Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Jim. Can you run that question by me one more time?
Sure. First question was, what do you notice in your small group that supported connection?
You know, Jim, actually, I want to hold off on that question. I was just about to tell you why, but even that, I think it would be better if I would reserve that.
Well,
Yeah, so are you being respectful to your partner and your group? Is that what it was?
I hear your guess.
Let's frame it this way. What did you notice that supported self-connection during the small group? If you wanted to talk about you, which I really enjoyed that.
Thanks, Jim. You know, I notice right now I'm blushing. I'm sure my whole body's red. I'm blushing from head to toe. Yeah, I'd rather take a step back.
Sure.
I'd rather not answer the questions.
Thank you for taking care of yourself.
Yes.
And you're following your integrity.
Yeah.
And
And Kinneret, let me just say one other thing. I mean, Dan's just modeling something that I really want to shine the light on. Is here there's a big power differential between Dan and Jim. And Dan, Jim is Dan's assessor, which sounds like a really scary thing, and it is terrifying for me. And but Dan spoke his truth to power, which equalized our status. So I'm really grateful, Dan, that you said no, and that you said yes to your own needs for respect and self-connection. So thank you. Is that complete for you?
Yes, thanks.
And Kinneret?
Kinneret.
No, thank you. I also enjoyed the modeling. What supported connection was, did I just move around the screen? What supported connection was, I was in Janelle's group, and yeah, we had, our third participant asking, would you like to receive feedback? And it was, about the request. That was just so honoring, so respectful. And then for us to be honest, expressing our feedback, and that it was received well. So there's something about both sides having the willingness to listen and hear, receive each other. And I think that created for a beautiful connection and then set the stage for, you know, a deeper willingness to connect empathically
Yeah.
Mhm.
and honestly.
Thank you. That's a great expression of the zero step, right? You both, everybody in that group arrived with this intention to connect, to be empathic, to listen. And if there was more of that happening in the world, we'd be in a different place. How about a takeaway? Is there a takeaway that you like to celebrate? Something that you imagine will support you from now on?
I think it's, you know, there's something about staying in the practice.
Yeah.
You know, if I step away from the practice for too long, I'll revert to who I was before the practice. And coming to the practice reminds me to get real present with people and to slow down.
Mm,
Yeah. And also the self-connection and requesting what I need, keeping me in the conversation also.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Wonderful takeaways. Jeff.
Yeah, thank you for the space. I'm grateful to be here and be a part of the class or be a part of the practice. My experience of the invitation going into the group time was that we could share feedback, and that helped me to connect because there was some understanding of what might be expected. We had a common expectation that there might be feedback based on the request. And we did also ask, I think, you know, would you like feedback? So we checked for consent, and that felt good. I had two takeaway thoughts, and I was able to share them in the group. And I'm grateful to be able to share them again here because I need to hear them over and over again. Two things that you guys talked about. One is that observations are self-responsible. And I'm going to take that away with me, help me to focus on my own experience of something. And then the other one being that empathy is something that happens inside of me. And I really want other people to have empathy for me, but I can't make it happen, you know? So those are two things that I wrote down and we'll take away. Thanks for being here and sharing those with me.
And of course you want empathy. Of course you do. It's a foundational human need.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what makes us, part of what makes us human.
And the gift of all of you who now know at least what empathy is and can start to plant seeds in your community of empathy.
Yeah. Time for one more. If anybody would, is waiting to be the last, go ahead, Fifi.
I felt very connected being the other person, listening to the two people in my group, that they, in their request of the other person, they gave them lots of space and choice, and were very focused on being able to hear no. Their intention was, how can I want to be okay with hearing no. And I could feel that, and I could feel their space, and it was, and they're giving me giving that other person the choice. Take your time with it. Come back to, go think about this, come back to me, and I'll be okay if I hear no. And that felt very connecting. That felt very connecting to me. And felt it was a great inspiring and a great role model for me to hear.
Fantastic. What fun for me to hear this feedback. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fifi. And we're going to transition to our farewell messages here. We have just a few minutes left.
And at the end, we'll be opening up groups or putting people in rooms as groups if you want to stay and hang out for a while.
Sure. And so we have been raising money for the Rusinga School that somebody mentioned in the chat to me. And so here's the link if you want to learn more about the NBC school that we're raising money for. Next week, I'm going to invite Kirsten to come back, and we will give her the gift together of how much money we have raised. And so there'll be one more week to to collect money. You can either send it. The best thing to do would be to send it using that direct link there to NBC Rusinga School. Just let me know what you send so that we can then match the donation. Joy and I are being inspired by this project, and we want to support it as well. So we're matching the donations. So that's the first link in the chat there. The second link is Joy and I are gearing up now to go to Bali in October, toward the end of October, where we're going to be doing international intensive training. How do you feel about that?
I am so excited, and I'm delighted that I'll actually be able to hang out with people in person. So come on by. I want to hang out with you.
Yeah, we've already got about 40 people registered. We have over 100 people pre-registered. So it's very likely to sell out. So if you're thinking about going, then please go ahead and go through the registration process, which you can do at the link that I put into the chat there. And what do you think of that one?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So Jim is putting a link into my, you can use that link to come and chat with me. Maybe it's empathy you would like, maybe you'd enjoy something about the work that you're doing and get some more insights or whatever. You just want to meet. There's the link.
Great.
Dory, you can book.me.
And what do you do about money? How do you handle money?
I don't handle it. You can handle it and send it if you like, but I don't handle it.
So in other words, you're giving this as a gift with the joy of a
Absolutely.
child feeding 100 ducks.
Absolutely, just like this group that we do here.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Just wanted to be clear about that.
Yeah, I'm glad you got clear, honey.
And also, the last link will be for how to get in contact with these recordings. There's 100 recordings now. So way more than you would probably ever listen to. But if you missed part of today and you want to review it, it'll be up again in a couple of days. You can either see it on YouTube or you can see it through our website, pathwaysliberation.com.
And you want to give people a way to join the mail list?
Yeah, the best way, apparently this link is not reliable. So
Oh.
if you're not on the mail list and you would like to be, then just put your email in the chat. I'll harvest them at the end of the call and put them directly into our
Yeah,
email list.
your name too, if you, that would be nice.
Sure.
to-
We send out about one thing a week, sometimes two, but almost always just one little message a week that lets you know what our topic is and reminds you the time, has the Zoom link and so forth. Okay, so next week we will continue this practice and imagine that the invitation has been accepted, and we'll start navigating the actual conversation and practicing how to use requests to maintain the connection that you're there for, how to use requests to make life more wonderful, how to go through more than just the beginning of the dialogue. So, and I taken in the feedback about more time in the practice, so we'll program that in. We love it. We love it when you have more time to practice, so we'll program that in next time and try to figure out also how to make it so you don't have to come back here if your needs are being met in the small group. And with that, I'm going to turn the recording off and invite you, just before I do that, to just unmute yourself and say goodbye to everybody. And then
No groups? You're not going to make
no,
groups?
you're going to do that.
I am?
Yeah, you said you would.
I don't want
Okay, I'll do it. Okay, so anyway, aloha, everybody. Bye-bye.
to.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.